Hi, my name is Matthew Bellisario. Welcome to another edition of the Bellisario Sonic YouTube channel. Today, a little fun trivia and a little bit of history on the 33 1/3 LP, long playing record. A little fun discussion for all you record collectors out there, maybe some of you younger people that don't know a lot about the history of it. Before I get started, please subscribe down below. I really appreciate y'all subscribing. I got a lot of videos coming up on a lot of record reviews on some new releases. I've got some information on some equipment and some other things coming up. So subscribe and you'll know when those are coming up. Now, you might be asking, where did this 33 1/3 record come from? When did it start? When was it introduced to the marketplace? Why are we still playing on a 33 1/3 for the most part? Well, a little bit of history really quick. Before the 33 1/3, you had this guy, which is a 78 RPM, 10-inch disc. These were typically made of shellac, and everybody were buying these. Problem with these are you got one song per side, kind of like a 45 RPM single, but this played at 78 RPM. And of course, the technology back when these were developed was very limited. You had really thick needles that played these. And the interesting thing about these is these were usually played on a crank turntable, if you will, record player, and you had a spring in there and you cranked it and it spun the platter at about 78 RPMs, give or take. And you put this on there and you put a fresh needle every single time you played a side of this record. That's what you were supposed to do. So if you played this side, you put a needle in. After this side was done, you lifted it up, you flipped it over, you put a new needle in, and you played the second side. Now, of course, a lot of people didn't do that like they were supposed to, and it wore their records out a lot faster than it should have. Now, these were made of shellac before the war. So during World War II, they had a shortage of shellac. And so they started making these out of what we call a similar material called vinyl. And that's kind of where that term came into use, is the vinyl record. And so they started using a different material to make records out of. Now, before 1948, these would come a lot of times. They would come as singles, but they would also come in albums, like a picture album, right? That's where the name album comes from. And you would have a book like these. And this one happened to have 4 of them in here of Duke Ellington. And of course, 1 song per side. So out of 4 records, you got 8 songs, which is pretty close to what the modern 33 1/3 would hold. So in 1948, Columbia steps in and comes out with the first commercially available 33 1/3 record. Now, some companies had already tried to do this, and the 33 1/3 speed came from dictation records that they used to make, and they would spin at 33 1/3. And what happened was, I think Edison was the first one in the 20s that tried to put music with a 33 1/3. Didn't work. They couldn't develop something that would play them. The technology wasn't there. Then you had RCA, I think in the 30s, they tried to actually develop it and they fell flat on their face. The war came, a lot of that development, of course, went to the side during the war. And what you had is in 1948, Columbia comes out with 12-inch records and 10-inch records. So they would come out with these 33 1/3, 10-inch records and 33 1/3, 12-inch records like you buy today. Now, what's interesting is RCA, everybody else followed suit. So Columbia comes out with these. Brunswick follows suit. They come out with them. All these other companies just jump right on the bandwagon. MGM, Mars Records, Allegro Records, Coral Records, Decca. All these people jump right on board in 1948, for the most part, 49, and they start producing these 33 1/3 10-inch records. And again, Columbia was putting out 12-inch records back then too, which would hold 23 minutes of music or 22 and a half minutes of music. And these guys, these 10-inch records would only hold 13 and a half minutes of music on each side. Nevertheless, you could get a couple songs, 3 songs, 4 songs, depending on how long they are. If they're 3 minutes long, and there's 4 songs, that's 12 minutes. So you could get 4 songs on here. That was great for classical music lovers because a lot of the classical music were longer pieces. And it sucked to have to listen through 4 records here to listen to the whole classical piece, right? And jazz recordings were also limited as well because of the time limitation. So what does RCA do? They're stubborn. RCA and Columbia, the 2 big boys, they want to battle it out. What's RCA do? RCA comes out with the 45 RPM record. And they argue that this is better sound quality than the 33 1/3. And they were probably right because most of the time a 45 RPM record playing at a faster speed with the same type of stylus, the information on this record is going to be playing faster. In a single line here, you're going to have better sound quality than you would this being condensed on a 33 1/3, right? This is a space of about an inch or a little more. And on a 33 1/3, you're going to be talking less than half of that for the same song, playing at a slower speed. So you're going to lose sound quality. So that was RCA's their big marketing message out there was we have better sound quality. However, in 1950, they had to give in because they were getting their butts beat by Columbia. And so they also said, hey, we give up. We're going to go with the 33 1/3 as well. And of course, RCA Victor starts putting out 33 1/3 as well. And that's how we came to have the 33 1/3 record. But what's interesting, what came out of that, the 45 came out of that battle, but also the 45 changer. And if you remember, like me, growing up in the 70s, you would have these big turntables, and these would stack, and you'd stack 4 or 5 of them up there, and they would just drop and keep continuously playing. That was RCA's answer, saying, hey, I can still play these classical music pieces and keep them together and just drop another record. And of course, that wasn't the same as just having it play continuously through. And so even though that technology came out of that battle for the 45, and of course, the 45 would go on to be very popular for singles for a long time. And even today, you can still buy a 45 single, even though they're not as popular as they used to be. So then we come to today with the 33 1/3 12-inch, which is what you see everywhere. And what you will see with the audiophile records, you'll see the 12-inch 45 RPMs as well, which gives you even greater sound quality. So a couple of little tidbits of information is in the 70s and 80s, they started to try to make the grooves smaller and pack more onto these records. You get almost 30 minutes per side on some of those. However, the sound quality suffered because you're trying to pack more in on this record at the same speed. And also, the closer you get to the center, the worse your sound quality gets, especially with bass response. So you'll notice in the 80s, all the bass heavy tracks on a lot of those rock albums are going to be on the outside. They're going to be on the outside of the record rather than towards the center. So just a little bit of trivia there. But anyways, that's where that comes from. 1948 is the big year when the 33 1/3 would hit the marketplace, and you'd have a battle for about a year and a half with the 45. 45 came out in 1949, and then after that, the 33 1/3 12-inch record became the mainstay, and record collectors ever since have been collecting these records. So a little bit of fun trivia for y'all. Stay tuned for more videos, and please subscribe, and we'll talk to you later on. Take care.